Hello, this is Young Dungeon Master and welcome. From the previous video we got a checklist for our first adventure. Let's not lose any time and get to it. Basic pitch of an adventure is: goblins ambush a merchant and drag his corpse to their lair to eat it. A concerned spouse hires an adventuring party to go look for a missing husband or wife. A very cliché adventure. Now let's make it serve our purpose. This adventure begins with a scene. Set anywhere, location does not really matter as long as it's set near a forest and in some sort of town or a large village. Try to act out or describe a hint of desperation, maybe even panic, in spouse's voice, to give urgency to the situation. The reason why authorities can't help are up to you, but I find giving routine answers like "sorry, it's not our jurisdiction" nudges players to act. At this point, if characters offer their help, the spouse would provide the following information. The husband drives a cart to a neighboring town and buys goods in bulk to sell in their shop. She also tells about the road the husband usually travels, and that he travels with a hired muscle, so he's not alone. Notice that she doesn't offer rewards outright. I like to leave room for my players to make character choices, how they negotiate payment, if they ask for guaranteed rewards, and so on. In this case, merchant's family has some gold, but not a lot. She could offer heirloom jewelry, or maybe hefty discount in the shop. Next leg of adventure is looking for an ambush spot. Take your time and explain how environment changes as your party moves away from the civilization and into wilderness. Naturally, to spot something is a perception check, but location of an ambush is what I call a no-failure plot point, when no check is required. 2 points. Goblins made a very obvious and brutish trap. Basically T-boned a cart with a tree log, so the aftermath is impossible to miss. Second is more gameplay and storytelling reason. There is always a possibility that everybody will fail a check to spot an obvious tipped-over cart by the side of the road. The only thing it accomplishes is your dungeon mastering gymnastics, bringing the party back to this spot and explaining why the party missed it in the first place. Here could be an optional encounter. If you plan to run a campaign with lots of encounters, throw in a pack of wolves. Or something a bit easier, like a brown bear who could be scared off. A good option if you plan to run optional encounters in the future. After a bit of digging around and investigation an ambush site, characters uncover 2 main pieces of information. The direction where something was dragged, and that the trap was constructed using crude instruments but surprisingly effective. This information is supposed to provide hints that attackers are cunning and use traps effectively, but probably not the smartest bunch because they left their tracks uncovered. Also describe that the majority of the goods were not taken as they lie scattered around. As the adventuring party goes deeper into the forest, well, maybe I went a bit overboard with spooky atmosphere. I described it as a wild forest never tamed by human or alike, with undefinable silhouettes moving alongside the party behind the trees and bushes. Fair to say, my players were on edge and were eager to deal with goblins and get out of the damn forest. But why do this? It is a perfect chance to establish the world outside cities and villages, how dangerous and mysterious it could be. After a couple of hours of traversing through the forest, party arrives at the edge of clearing, with some ruins and a pond in the middle. Upon closer inspection, they notice there is a overgrown statue in front of the ruins. It's safe to assume that players will want to sneak closer to the ruins in order to inspect them. Here where your rules on stealth will come into play. At this point you describe 3 points of interest that your players might want to investigate. First, ruins themselves. Ask for history check to identify the origins of this ruin. I ran mine as high elven. Investigation check should reveal that it was probably a small country house of a lesser noble. Also that drag marks lead into the cellar. As for the statue, describe the features of an elven warrior carved out of the white stone that miraculously escaped weather damage. The podium statue stands on didn't fare so well, and adventurers can barely make out the elven script. Pond is an odd one out. Both times I ran the adventure, party skipped the water feature. However, it's nice pond with clear water and no sign of swampage. A relatively hard investigation check should reveal that there is probably an underground water flow. If the characters investigate further, going underwater, they will find a small cave system leading under the ruins. So, as you might have guessed, goblins hide underground. A damp cellar with lots of byproducts of goblin presence. Let's go over the features present on the map. A secret door. There are some broken tools meant for digging lying around. Upon closer inspection, this part of the wall seems to be made out of different material, a white stone, with an elven scripture atop. Inside is an untouched private armory of a noble. Here are some crates. They were brought along when goblins moved in. They are filled with their knickknacks, now used for cover. A very basic trap, a tripwire that triggers some rocks to fall. A circular arena with sand. Stone golem with arcane runes carved into it stands in the middle. One elven word sticks out in the carvings. It reads training. If anybody were to pronounce the word in Elvish, the golem will attack the closest target in the circle and go idle once everybody in the circle is defeated or fled. His attacks are non-lethal. Here goblins sleep and keep their personal loot. The corpses of spouse and bodyguard are here. Main entrance. As party descends into the cellar, describe that on the stairs there are small bones of forest critters. If they ignore them, they crack with a distinct sound. Goblins are now aware of the approaching party, hiding and setting a ready action to shoot at anybody who enters. If party discovered underwater caves, they could approach from this angle. A water is about 2 feet deep and has a very slow current. The goblins don't expect an attack from this direction, and would be caught completely unaware. Act out confusion in goblin ranks, and give more than just a surprise round. Do some chaotic movement on goblins' part, maybe even triggering the trap by themselves. After the battle, this is a good place to make camp and heal wounds, maybe even stay for a night. But don't force your players to rest here. Instead, remind them that they need to replenish their spells and health points. At this point, the only thing left is to turn in the quest. As promised, this is a very basic adventure, but it is a good engine to showcase your rulings and where you put your focus. There are a lot of points where you could hook your players for later adventures. For example, I ran that goblins were just opportunistic scavengers, and they themselves did not ambush the merchant. But who did it? That's a good question for an investigation for a later time. Now the characters have a very clear mission: bring the merchant back, dead or alive. Also, elves in this region are wood elves, who worship nature and not gods, and they hate arcane magic. So encounter an arcane golem and statue of an elven goddess in elven ruins. Raised a few eyebrows. The secret door could also be a hook. It could lead into deeper levels of the dungeon, revealing uncovered secrets, or lead into Underdark itself. And who were those silhouettes in the forest? Hope this video was entertaining and helpful. Good luck with your rolls and see you in the next video.